listening and hearing everything I said to him about my experience of being targeted, uber surveilled, monitored, and being hit with electromagnetic weapons. Now, this information and this issue that both of us continue to speak out about, and that Dr. Marco spoke out about, not everybody in the world is aware of, thanks to the hatchet jobs from, the New York Times, the Washington Post, who are trying hard to keep targeting under wraps and trying hard to dismiss the witness and testimonial of everybody coming forward to speak about electromagnetic weapons, dismiss them as delusional, as you know. So we're kind of fighting an uphill battle here, trying to inform the world that indeed this is very true. This is indeed going on. So I was so blown away by Dr. Marco during that very first conversation when he completely accepted everything I said, completely open-minded, completely aware. And this is what I would hope anybody who is educated, who has an awareness of the state of affairs of technology today. We are living in a world where we all have cell phones. Wi-Fi is all around us. We're moving toward 5G, and God forbid we actually get there. Because as we know, 5G is millimeter waves, pulsed millimeter waves. And we need to, as a human community, stop 5G being rolled out on all of us. But coming back to Dr. Marco, he understood these things very, very well. And that's what totally impressed me about him right from the start. After meeting me, after hearing my testimonial, and I think around that time, he'd also spoken to Dr. Catherine Horton, and he had started to do interviews with her. So he had begun to understand, and Dr. Horton, as we know, is a physicist. So she was able to inform him, no doubt, about the physics of this reality that we are currently facing. We are being locked down in an electronic control grid, in an electromagnetic control grid, I should really say. And all of us as a human community are being subjected to incredible attacks of different kinds. And I'm sure we'll get into that, at this point. But going back to that time period, I think what Dr. Marco set in motion after listening to many of our testimonials and witness statements was profound, because he came forward to support those who were targeted, and he suggested having a forum, a regular forum, where a few prominent people who were targeted could come forward and speak about their experiences. And that was the Technocrime Fighters Forum, a podcast to start with.
Yeah, and I was invited to join your little group at the beginning because I was more or less the person that informed Dr. Paul Marco about this issue. We had he and I had done a number of podcasts on his World Beyond Belief program, and he was very kind enough to let me even title the show, which I think we changed the title from Nowhere to Hide, which kind of reinforces the victim status of the TIs, and we changed it at my suggestion to Exposing and Defeating Gangstalking.
Brilliant.
So that is a more proactive. We're going to win this. We're going to win this because we have to win this for humanity. There is no other recourse unless we want our kids to be biological robots and our grandkids, because this is the system that is being set up for us. With this electromagnetic control grid, this electronic concentration camp that targeted individuals now find themselves in, it can be extended and will, if it's not stopped, to vast segments of the world population. And so you and I, and to an extent, Paul, although he may not have known it, are the canaries in the coal mine. We're the ones that are aware of what's happening. But there are many, many, many others, millions, or perhaps more than that are not aware. So our job then is to educate. Paul was an educator, PhD in psychology. I believe he taught at a Waldorf school. Mm-hmm. He worked with corporations. I got a lot of life experience as a father and as a teacher, and just a very, very concerned spirit and positive presence. So it kind of breaks our heart. It does break our heart to lose him as a friend and a colleague in this fight for the future of humanity. I don't want to sound, grandiose about this, but I think what we've learned over the last, year or two, in my case, I've had my Gangstalking mind control cults website up for, a little over a year and a half, and it's now huge because I'm a retired geography professor, still able to do research, and now applying my research skills to this subject to the most extent that I can. And I ran into your stuff. You already had a website, theeverydayconcern.net, which is enormously educational. You being also an ex-educator at a top-notch school in the D.C. area, Georgetown, I believe, wasn't it?
Well, I've taught at Georgetown, but mainly George Washington.
Okay, George Washington, both very good schools. So you have those skills as an academic researcher and as an academic communicator. Very good with words, which is the kind of person that we need in this, well, some call it an information war. In fact, the U.S. military calls it that. And perception management. How do you get the populace to go along with this, that, and the other program? Wars abroad and special operations to destabilize and destroy other governments, blah, 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 which the United States is doing. The American empire is just going global now. And they want a docile, submissive population that has no input into the policies of our government. We, on the other hand, believe that, the Constitution guarantees that government is the servant of the people and not the other way around. And the government has just turned everything on its head. The Constitution says God's on the top, and then the individual, and then the government serves the individual, the citizenry, and then the military serves the government. Now we've just taken that all up and turned it upside down. The military's on top, intelligence and military. The government's maybe a little bit below that, but all together. And then the individual now has lost their rights based on all these laws that have been passed post 9/11, like the National Defense Authorization Act. So there's enormous room for concern for those who want our country to survive in the future, and our own citizenry to survive in any form in which there is freedom and independence of thought. Because these technologies are so invasive. The information technologies can actually distort and change your memories. This is very difficult for most people to get a grasp on. But, there are two things, according to the Dr. Ewan Cameron and the British Army Psychological Warfare Division and George Orwell, two things that give us a sense of identity in place, and that is, our memories and our sensory perceptions. And now these electronic weapons can actually change our memories and erase our memories and mess with our direct sensory perceptions, so that we then as citizens have no sense of self. So we can be taken out of the equation. We can be easily manipulated. And this is de facto declaring war on the citizenry of the United States and the world.
And the world.
Yes.
And
so we have a code.
And as you say, you've got the military and intelligence on top. And as you know, there are many dark factions above the military and intelligence, and also inside the military and intelligence. And part of what you have been doing, what I've been doing, what Dr. Marco has been doing, is trying to ferret out through conversations, through research, through reading, through working together, who exactly those factions are, what they comprise, who they comprise, where do they come from, and I think at this point in time, we all have a fair idea who they are and how they're operating in extremely nefarious ways, and how they've been operating across time. And in fact, that's actually something that I should talk about regarding Dr. Marco's work. Because, prior to my meeting Dr. Marco last year, I had actually come upon his website, his YouTube channel. I had been exploring some of his videos, along with the videos of some other people, who've been working in this space. I guess it's the truth media space, trying to excavate, research, bring forward information. And what really kind of impressed me during those times about Dr. Marco's site, which is Pinecone Utopia, or World Beyond Belief, is that it was so wide-ranging. Because he kind of dug into, the cabal. He dug into the matrix. What was the matrix? What was behind the matrix system that's been set up by this Kabbalistic faction, dark faction, and how people are being trapped by it, and people's minds are being narrowed down. Our education system has been destroyed. And as you know, you've talked a great deal about how our weather's been modified. It's been modified for decades, right? Back to 70 years of military experimentation, etc. And so the world that we live in today is such a modified world. Our weather is modified. We're being chemtrailed to death. I mean, I think these are things that Dr. Marco, explored. But also our background. Where do humans come from? I think there's a lot of mystery there. And I know there are lots of, researchers out there who are working on this. Michael Tellinger, Graham Hancock, David Icke, even Dr. Ed Spencer, right? Each one has different theories, and each one is going back and re-looking at various archaeological ruins and trying to figure things out. And I think Dr. Marco was also doing some of that. He was, kind of researching that as well. And such an open mind. He was also researching things like the flat Earth theory and things like that. I think I have to actually sit down and explore some of his videos. I haven't explored all of his videos, but such eclectic a range and such an interest in the past of humanity, in the present situation, and looking at also the technocratic kind of situation, which is kind of what we find ourselves in today. We're living in a world where science and technology have taken over, and there are techno geeks out there who've gotten into the transhumanist thing and are so focused on cybernetics, on merging man with machine, on robotics, on artificial intelligence, and literally pushing humanity into what they conceive of as the next phase of evolution. But what you and I can see is a very synthetic, plastic, wrongful track to take for humanity. Some of us would prefer to evolve as we are, and we prefer to keep our connection with the divine. We prefer to see ourselves as humanity connected with the divine. But what you have these techno geeks doing is humanity completely separate from any notions of divinity or spirituality, but humanity connected with electronics and cyborged and robotized into a kind of a transmogrified human, a modified human, a genetically modified and an electronically modified human. So, there's an obvious disjunct there between their thinking and our thinking. And so one of the things that Dr. Marco has done, I think, spectacularly well is over time continuing to look at different aspects of this kind of change and doing research and presenting the research, as you say, in a very educative format for the world.
Yeah, and again, with the positive presence that makes it, palatable and perhaps even, somewhat enjoyable to watch these programs, which can be on very serious and depressing issues, frankly. But Paul brought a very positive spirit to that, and we're going to miss that. The ability to relate personally, be positive about our relationships here and now, and making this contribution in a dignified manner. Very important. Very important. Again, it's an information war to some extent, but it's also a battle, of perceptions. And our adversary in this case, or the people that have designated us as adversary, they have all the resources. They have all the, the $800 billion a year for the Defense Department, if you count it a certain way, as I've read. It's not only the gorilla in the living room; that's the rogue elephant in the living room, and that's what's driving the system. And that and they're acting in a self-interested manner, as Eisenhower warned us about in 1961. Beware of the military-industrial complex. It has to fall on a informed and vigilant citizenry to keep them in check. Otherwise, they will run the system for their own benefit. And this is exactly what we see.
That's
yes,
exactly
these
what's
guys
going on currently. Exactly. They've taken over.
Yeah, they've taken over. And, I've just transcribed the interviews that Kay Griggs, ex-military wife, ex-wife of a very, very high military assassin, an insider, and herself, a very well-educated political insider. She gave these interviews in 1998, found out that she was being targeted for being a quote-unquote troublemaker, and figured out how it was being done. It was being done by the military. She knew who it was being done by and how it was being done. She would find the Army field manuals about intelligence and electronic warfare operations. She would go through and she said, well, this is what they're doing to me. This explains what's happening to me. It's right out of the manual.
She's brilliant, and I'm so glad that she did that research and also that she did those interviews. I mean, she's so open-hearted and completely revealing in those discussions that she had with 2 or 3 interviewers, I think, whom she revealed so much to.
Yeah, this combination of a robust spirit. She was very much Christian, and her family over the time Protestant Christian, and the concern for others. I mean, she loved her husband. Her husband was basically a robot, she said, who probably was a victim of MK Ultra, the CIA's mind control program, as well as being homosexually recruited.
Which is far more widespread than any of us imagine. The MK Ultraing of people, I think, is so widespread, particularly in the military, among military families.
That's what she said. She said the U.S. military is a mind control operation run by sexual deviants, bisexuals and homosexuals like her husband. And this is what you do to make it to the top. And, of course, then they've got dirt on you and can control you. So they protect each other. It's a relatively small cabal. And these people hold the highest positions in government and military.